Hello, my name is Justice Owens. I'm a student at Jacksonville State University, and this article is on the high intensity interval training, also known as HIIT, based running plan, improves athletic performance by improving muscle power. The purpose of this research is to show that changing from low intensity endurance training to high intensity endurance training will increase athletic performance and decrease the risk of injury for triathlon athletes. Research summarization. Researchers wanted to evaluate the most beneficial method of training for triathlon athletes to increase athletic performance while decreasing the risk of injury. This is a 5-week training plan with a control group and an experimental group to evaluate data from high-intensity interval training methods compared to the traditional low-intensity training method. Here are some important articles that is used for this study. Factors associated with triathlon-related overuse injuries. This article studies the factors that led to the increased risk of injury, which has a direct correlation to the performance of the athlete. In this article right here, it is just speaking about what is the key factor of causing injuries, and throughout that article it discusses that running, the increased volume of running is one of those. So you'll see the adjustment to that with this method is a decrease of the volume of running, but an increase of the intensity. Number 2, how do endurance runners actually train? Relationship with competition performance. The importance of this article is to discuss the most efficient method of training for endurance athletes and conclude that high-intensity endurance athletes train low intensities, which is counterproductive for performance benefits. That goes along with point number 1. And article number 3, training for intense exercise performance, high intensity or high volume training. The importance of this article is to show the key factor of performance improvement is the sum of training intensity over a season. So that's pretty self-explanatory. It is just saying that the accumulation of the season of all the seasonal training has the greatest impact of the athletic performance. The problem that the researchers are trying to solve. The problems the researchers are trying to solve is which form of training best improves athletic performance while decreasing the likelihood of injury for triathlon athletes. So, in other words, the problem is how do we make our athletes best as possible for performance? The hypothesis. The hypothesis is that high-intensity running periods is better at increasing athletic performance than training at lower intensities. This is counter against the old traditional route of training where you train higher volume, lower intensity. Materials, participants. We have 16 male triathletes. Only 13 were able to complete it because 3 were sick. The age ranging from 24 to 42 years old. The body mass is 74 kilograms, give or take 5 kilograms. The height is 176 centimeters. You can give or take 9 centimeters per participant. Criteria in order to participate. You must be 18 years or older. You must be actively competing in races. You must have a clean health record consisting of the last 6 months and currently not engaging in any high-intensity training program. And the reason for that is because your body would be acclimated to this type of training if you have been doing it. We have the two groups, the experimental group and the control group. The experimental group is the group that will be changing their routine a little bit, while the control group will be keeping the same routine. So the experimental and control group is determined by the overall race time on the performance from a sprint distance triathlon competition. To collect progress, the high-intensity interval training program, the control group was told to maintain the moderate-intensity training routines, while the experimental group were told to modify their running program to HIIT running plan, but to maintain their moderate-intensity swimming and cycling routine. The HIIT program consists of 3 or 4 sessions a week for 5 continuous weeks. Step used to carry out the experiment is the two groups. Of course, we have the running plan, so the plan of action. To get the statistical data needed, the participants on the last training session before testing perform 2 trial jumping sessions with a 15-second recovery. This is just to get a basis. The triathletes were instructed to refrain from intense exercise for 2 days preceding testing and to perform the last HIIT session 3 days before the post-test. They were not allowed to eat during the hour preceding test and not consume coffee or any other caffeination during the 3 preceding hours before testing. Pre-testing and post-testing were conducted at the same time of the day to avoid the influence of circadian rhythm, and the environmental conditions were similar, ranging from 20 to 24 degrees Celsius. So, in other words, just trying to keep the same environment, same testing, so the variables are consistent with one another. They even used the same track, a synthetic track. The experiment was a 750-meter swimming, a 20-kilometer cycling, and a 5-kilometer running. They all competed at the same facility. The swimming involved an 8-lane, 25-meter pool. The cycling was on a personal bicycle, their own personal road bicycle, and the running was on a 400-meter synthetic track. And the only advice that was given to the athletes was try to finish as fast as possible. They also used heart monitors and blood samples for data analysis. Here is our running program that was used for the experimental group. We see the exercises was 100-meter runs with 30-second rest, 400-meter runs with 90-second rest between runs, and 3-minute between sets. Bouts of 120 seconds with 120-second rest, 30 seconds all-out running sprints with 3-minute rest, and the bottom row is the training volume of how many days a week that were trained. So we see with on the first row that through week 1 through 4 that they increased the amount of sprints, week 5 going back to week number 1. Okay. Pre and post test overall results. This right here, EG through EG7, EG1 through EG7 is the experimental group. Participants 1 through 7. We see with the red line that this is the pre-test, and the green line is the post-test. We see that for every one of them through EG1 through EG7 that there is a decrease from the red line to the green line, meaning that times did get faster. Okay, with CG8 through CG13, we see that the red line and green line are pretty much stagnant. If anything, the post-test was a little bit slower. Data. Prior to the implementation of this program, there was no significant differences in training method and performance between the two groups. After training method, the two groups' swimming and running times were different after training. The cardiovascular responses showed no significant differences between the groups were found at pre-test or post-test. Vertical jump improved from EG, not from CG. So the experimental group vertical jump did increase. The result of this study included that the HIIT-based running plan was a reduction in training volume not only resulted in improved muscular performance and vertical jump ability from 6 to 9%, but also an increase in performance during the sprint distance triathlon, an improvement of 2.9% in swimming time and 0.47% in cycling time, and 3.93% in running time. The control group athletes who continued usual high volume and low moderate intensity training program did not experience significant changes in muscular performance. The improvements reported by the EG in athletic performance was not accompanied by significant changes in physiological responses during the simulated race or in exhaustion level reach, which indicates the triathletes experienced some adaptation that allowed them to race faster with the same physiological impact. And the reduction of the volume of sprints would also be a reduction in the risk of injury. The hypothesis was deemed true. This study shows that the presence of high-intensity interval training in triathletes' running plan not only improves running performance, but also swimming performance during a sprint distance competition, which could be associated with the cross-training principle. 5-week HIIT-based running plan improved vertical jumping capacity in triathletes, while low moderate intensity with high volumes did not experience changes in muscular performance variables. This program improved explosive muscular power. The experimental group experienced some levels of adaptation that allowed them to race faster without affecting their physiological. Future research. It mentioned nothing of a future research plan, but it's possible to try to establish a plan to try to clearly understand the physiological basis of aerobic endurance exercise. The author didn't mention much of a plan, but there are many other researches that could be based off of this one, branched off of this one. In conclusion, the high training volume at low intensities and a lower training volume at high intensities seems to be necessary to obtain optimum development of endurance athletes.